along the same lines of some of the questions the things you're raising in your own groups. You know, we are adult learners, we're not kids, so part of what we're doing is processing what you already know, what you already have been doing, and re-understanding what you're used to doing. So this is all good, and let me just start there. Now, to begin with the very first statement in what Steve has written in that book. Where's the page again? Child. Yeah, page 12. That's a good, very concise, very well done, very helpful, because it focuses on the salient issues, on how different societies treat children. Now, I know that as Africans, you're probably, some of us are beginning to squirm, because you're wondering, now, is that hitting too close home? How are children treated in your home, in your community, in your village, in your tribe? How are they treated? Do we have a utilitarian view? And I think here, Steve, is where we've got to, I like the emphasis that children, which you make, is an overly utilitarian view of children, which says, in other words, their value is because they'll take care of us when we are old. So they have no other value but taking care of us. Is overly utilitarian. Although, on the other hand, it's true that children, at least in our side, we take care of our parents, don't we? I have an 86-year-old dad, and he needs my help. But I'm not taking care of him because he raised me to take care of him. Now, that may have been his intention. I don't think. But that is his problem, not my problem. Now it is me and my attitude. In the way I bring up my children and the way I take care of my dad. I take care of my dad because, it is commanded by God to honor our father, and our parents, to take care of them. And indeed, compelled even by the love of Christ, so to speak, because it's not just out of duty, like, I have nothing to do with this old man. Let me just take care of him because my God commands me. No, he's my father. He's the one through whom I'm in the one. So my motivation to serve my dad, to take care of my dad is because he raised me, therefore I'll take care of him. That may be part of it, yes, because, if he hadn't taken care of me, I wouldn't be here. But it is because I love him, because it is doing God's will, it is because I'm following Christ's example. And so we need to be very aware of some of the things the way we do. So, the other thing is also about, the functional. We know that how many of us grew up in the village? I know most of us. Some of us. I've realized that there are many people who are born in the city. They don't know any other village. But if you grew up in a village like me, you know that it is normal. To have chores, going to the garden, all right, in the morning, especially on the weekends, all right. During school days, you may not have as much time, but over the weekends, I used to take care of my dad's, cows and, my grandfather's goats and sheep, That was my weekend chore. Now, we're not saying that children should not do chores. They should not participate in work, okay? Because we know that work is commanded by God. When God put Adam and Eve in the garden, what did he command them to do? To work it, to till it, to tend it. It's part of the great, the cultural mandate. We are to, as good stewards, to take care of this place. So we're not saying we should, pamper children, okay? Because one other extreme is we have a generation, particularly middle-class types amongst us, and, middle, upper class, who feel like the children need to be protected. They do no work. They have house girls or house helpers. They do everything. These kids don't even know. They don't know how to sweep. They don't know how to clean. They can't even look after themselves. Now, we are spoiling our children, and we are disobeying God. Because we're not teaching them even a trade. We're not teaching them to work. So we have to keep the balance, that we're not abusing and taking care of children, using them as cheap labor, but at the same time, on the one hand, we are not pampering them and actually not even preparing them for life. There are kids who have no life skills. They grow up with, I would say, an attitude of entitlement, where they're supposed to be served. They don't even have the servant spirit of, they don't even know when the visitor comes home, they just stare at them and wonder who they are. I was brought up, when somebody comes, you stand up, you welcome them, you show them a chair, it's a place to sit, be hospitality. These are things children can only learn in the home. So as much as we're emphasizing this, we have to keep the balance. I must make a confession. First of all, I must confess. That scripture about, I think in Matthew, is it 19? It's 18. They should tie a big, stone around them, throw them down there. You know what is it? Drown them. I must confess that there are many times I feel like that. When I read stories of people who abuse children, who take advantage of them, or sometimes I watch a movie, where that is being depicted, I am angry. We've got to be angry. I'm not saying we go out, act out our anger, but if we do not feel like that, there might be something wrong with us. So, there is something about that we need, and that's one of the things that I fear in our society, with all so many stories that come to us in the newspapers. Child abuse, neglect, molestation. You can count them, and they are, many of them are casually practiced, and sometimes the perpetrators are not even caught, or even if they are caught, they never see, justice is never served. And you feel really that, it's a frustrating thing. And so I very much, I don't even mind the death penalty. I know that in Europe you've abolished the death penalty, but we haven't done it here. We still have the death penalty, and there are times when I genuinely feel it is a valid thing. I'm not advocating for it in the sense, I would like everybody to know the Lord and go to heaven, all right? But when they do these kind of things, I feel like really, I can't, yeah. Now, in thinking about that, we've got to, we need to ask ourselves questions. What are the subversive factors in our societies? What are the factors, tendencies, beliefs, and practices that subvert, or what we call child care, or good child, taking care of children in our society? What are they? And I think that where we started, that aspect, that point about children being a heritage from the Lord is an important thing to keep in mind. Because if for me, you know that really, in our context, culturally, children are not a heritage from the Lord. Children are a right. If you get married, you must get children. 1 year, 2 years, you don't have a child, people will be thinking, what's wrong with you? If you're a man, they'll be asking, why did you marry her? She doesn't have children. Because children are not a heritage from the Lord, they are a right that society, that men need. Women have to get them to prove their womanhood, right? And men have to get them from the women in order to prove their manhood, right? In fact, very often they are a precondition. So, in fact, today it's openly practiced. Premarital, or rather, people getting married, living together before they get married, is because he has to find out whether she's fertile or not. Okay? Because if she doesn't bring forth, then he's not going to marry. He's going to leave her and get another one. Why? Because children are not a heritage, a gift from God. They have become a necessary condition for marriage. The foundation of it. And if they're not there, then the marriage cannot be. All these begin to stack up a hierarchy of attitudes that end up being the basis for the things that actually get children abused. Because then you get a gender hierarchy. Because not only must you get children, there must at least be a boy child. If there is no boy child, there is something wrong. And so men will feel justified in beginning to graze outside there, so to speak, to use that expression, in search of a boy child. And women will be blamed, even though we know scientifically that the determination of a gender is actually the man. But tell that to people in our culture. This woman, something's wrong with her. Now, from gender, of course, from gender hierarchy, now that the boy child becomes more important than the girl child, and of course, now the only reason that girls are needed is for dowry. All right, I'll be able to get cows, and it goes from her, which I will then use. They become an economic benefit. You see how it all comes down? Because children are not a gift from God, they become a natural right, a natural birth. Just like I plant a seed, if I plant one seed of maize, I expect to get a cob or several cobs on one plant, right? That is not a biblical view of children. It's therefore important for us to know that children are a gift from God. So that even without children, some of us here may be a childless couple, or we may know people who are childless couple. That marriage is complete according to the scriptures. And there are many other. Yeah. Yes, brothers, it's complete. Now, I know some of you, those who are caught may say, you're only speaking because you already have. You don't know what it is. But there's a long history of childlessness in the Bible, thankfully. We don't have time to go through it. The patriarchs and many in the Bible went through that. And we all know that one of the main lessons from that is in those stories where the people of God or the servants of God were childless. It was to prove that God ultimately is the one who gives children. Amen. Now, let's also talk about another thing. Children are an exemplar. And I like the way that Steve was saying it, but I like just to highlight that a little bit more. Not the childlessness, not the childishness, which he mentioned, that's not what he meant, but actually that innocence. Now, when we say innocent, we must also not fall prey to some of the modern psychology around, which says children are kind of innocent in an absolute way, and they only get corrupted by people around them. And so actually, if they were left untreated well and everything was provided, they will blossom into into kind of responsible adults. That's not true. Okay, that view does not take seriously the problem of sin, or the fact that human beings are fallen, even little children are fallen. And therefore, left even to their devices, they will do evil things. Now, it's true that the innocence that Jesus is talking about here is that implicit trust that all children trust they trust adults, they trust especially their parents. They just naturally, implicitly. As long as you're there, they're not worrying about whether food will come or not. My dad or my mom is there. That implicit faith in their parents is what Jesus is commending. We are to have an implicit faith in God, where we trust Him implicitly. Also, their vulnerability. They do not think in terms of being able, or they don't have to have everything to be happy. I mean, they will play and be happy. And you see children playing in the streets. They may be dirty, but children will play anywhere. They know how to enjoy life, given a chance. That carefree, implicit trust. This is what God is commending about. When we see them, we should be reminded. Therefore, children become an object lesson to us. My children are my teachers sometimes, or many times. Okay? Now, they don't know how to pretend. Now, I have a 9-year-old, I have a 15-year-old. Now, my 9-year-old, if I buy, he doesn't know how to hide his feelings, We are more poly. We know how to hide our feelings. We may be very jealous and envious, but we kind of put on a smile. He doesn't know how to do that. If I buy something, and I buy something for his brother, and he thinks what his brother has is better, his face will fall. And he'll say, why him? You see, that honesty is something we lack. They are open. Now, I've got to teach him to know how to appreciate the fact that he may get something different, his brother gets something, but at least he's not practicing hypocrisy. He's not a hypocrite. Now, that's another thing, that this is where we learn from children, because we see how they react. And we wish we could be like them, but we know we're like them. Very often we are covering up. So they're an object lesson in being honest. So children, and I think, I do feel like if we didn't have children, we would miss a lot. There are things we don't, you see, when you're growing up, you're not paying attention to how you're growing up, or to even the things you're learning. It's only when you look back that you begin to see the thing. Now, only through children do we understand ourselves too. Do we understand how we feel and how we came to be the way we are? So children are not there just simply, we're not for their own sake. It is also for our own sake. We see our own selves, we see our own journeys, our own struggles through children. They are part of God's educational, classroom. They're part of what God is doing to teach us who we are and who we ought to be. Dave talked about, Steve, sorry, about, not sentimentalizing. And I think that's a well-taken point. We should not sentimentalize. And I think the people who are prone to sentimentalizing are the middle-class types. And some of us here may be falling in that category, depending on where you are. We should not sentimentalize. The Bible is realist in its view of human beings and of children. And so we should be realistic as well. Now, let me also make a comment also about another thing about children. Children are spontaneous. I have a 9-year-old, and one of the things I love is when I buy something, however little, when I take it home to him, he's so overwhelmingly, In fact, how is it that children are able to grasp profound lessons of love? Where do they get that ability? My son gives me a hug almost every day, tells me, I love you. And in my mind, I'm thinking, how does he know that? How does he know that? Because, he says it and he means it. He's not putting on an act. Children, so he is my teacher. In fact, he corrects my skepticism, my own cynicism sometimes, because I can see that in him is this displays some of that, unadulterated, a plain, honest response to things of life. When when he's joyful, he shows it. When he's happy, he shows it. When he's unhappy, he also shows it, of course. But he's just completely open. He doesn't hide anything. So I'm always ashamed of myself because of the many things I have to, sometimes hide from those around me because I don't want them to know how I feel about certain things. In short, children are an integral part, not an appendage. In fact, one point that I forgot to mention is that, which Steve mentions here, is where children understand as a burden. And I think that today we raise up children, and I think maybe we transmit our anxiety to them way too early, because we do everything to show them that they are a burden to us. We tell them of how much it costs, school fees we have to pay for them, and what we have to buy for them, and where to them, so that even children begin to get anxious before they're even adults. They are deprived of enjoying a certain kind of innocence, knowing that they don't have to be rich, have everything, but that God will provide anyway, and God provides through their parents. So we begin to transmit our own anxiety, our own stress onto our children. And our children become stressed way too early. And we are responsible for that.